Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so glad you are here today. I'm Rachel Helms. I'm one of the assistant directors here at MTSU Alumni Relations. Whether you're joining us from nearby or across the country, thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this session. Artificial Intelligence, No Judgment, Just Basics. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. You're all on mute, so please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. This webinar is being recorded, and so I'd be happy to send the link to you after it's over if you'd like that for reference. And so now I'm going to turn it over to our fabulous speakers.
Great. What's going on, everybody? On behalf of myself and Todd, it's great to have you here, and looking forward to chatting about, both kind of doing a presentation for you all, riffing a bit, and getting some Q&A and some feedback from you. Because to be completely transparent, and Todd, feel free to chime in, I don't know what you're here to learn, right? So we're going to go through kind of the basics. The basics of AI, right? And this isn't, obviously in this space, you experience a lot of hype from AI companies and you experience a lot of doom and gloom from the other side of the fence, right? And somewhere in the middle is where we want to try to approach this, like kind of a working professional's read on where AI is in media right now, kind of what it's done to the jobs a lot of us were trained to do before AI existed and what we can actually do about it. So it should be a cool conversation. So I think first things first, if we'll do a quick introduction of both Todd and myself. Professor O'Neill and myself, excuse me, I should not. I'm just Daniel. He's Professor, So anyway, so my name is Daniel Rowland. I've been an instructor at MTSU for 15 years, 16 years, something like that, full time for maybe 11. I do basically three things. So, instructor at MTSU full time. I come from the creative side of the industry, so that would be my first kind of job, if I ever had a job, was being a guitar player, producer, and an engineer. I kind of came up with Adrian Ballou, so who some of you may know, who's a Nashville resident, and then through him, Trent Reznor and some other people. So kind of in the progressive industrial rock side of things, and then got to work in more hip hop and film music. I've got some of my credits on there. I'm one of the, considered one of the top mastering engineers in the world. Get to work on a lot of really cool projects, Star Wars and nerdy things that I like. So I've been lucky there, and that's what kind of led me into what I'm probably more known for now is to being the vice president of strategy and partnerships at Lander Audio. And if you've not heard of Lander before, I've been there for 11 years now. So when we think about AI, a lot of times we think about the past few years where it's kind of come to be top of mind, where we were the first AI music company 13 years ago now. It's been going on. So I've been the face of that company having these conversations for 11 years, right? So I think I have an interesting perspective about the arc of not just the progression of the tools, but the public sentiment, how it's kind of, changed as we've gone from workflow AI, which is what Lander is. It's a mastering tool. Doesn't do generative AI, to more the generative stuff now. Whereas, I'll talk a bit more about this later. Lander used to be like, it was going to be the end of the world for audio engineers, right? And it turned out that wasn't the case. And now Gen AI is going to be the end of the world for creatives. And we'll talk through a bit about, if that's the case or not. So that's pretty much me. Professor O'Neill, if you don't mind doing an introduction.
Yeah, well, so I've been I've been here at MTSU for 14 years. This is actually my last semester, my last day of my last semester at MTSU. I retire in July. But prior to that, I had a less illustrious career, but with big names that you've heard of. My first job was with a company called ADP. If you've ever received a paycheck, most likely you received it from ADP, and I was part of their in-house team that built out their communications function. Went through a whole bunch of different things. I have a bright, shiny object syndrome, so if it's cool and it looks new, I'm like right on that, like immediately. So I got into multimedia in the 90s when CD-ROM was really, really cool. And we thought it was going to be the most amazing thing. And it was pretty amazing at the time. I got to do really cool projects for everything from Prince, or at the time he was just the artist, to less exciting, Toshiba fax machines, Coldwell Banker, other stuff. Moved on, and I was I was part of the team fortunate to be able to launch USAA.com. Part of a team of 5 that was hired to build out the interface for USAA.com. When I got there were 5 of us. When I left, there were well over 200 people in the function area that I was in, plus all the other affiliated people, um, and then got my dream job. So I am actually right about now. I'm about 2 years behind plan, like life plan. This is where I expected to be when I was shortly coming out of college and learned that teaching was an amazing thing and that wow, teaching let me explore all these wild things like AI, and that's actually how Daniel and I met like 3 years ago or whatever, uh, doing some of the first kind of AI conversations here at MTSU, and what's been going on with it. So yeah, it's been a fun journey. So yeah, let's dive into the content and then off we go.
Yep, let's do it. All right. So kind of to set the table here about where we are and what's happened in the past couple years, right? So, I mean, there's a reason we're having this conversation now and not 5 years ago, right? So AI is not a new thing, as I said before, right? It's been around for quite some time, even certainly longer than even Lander was a company. But it wasn't something that was really accessible to the general public, and the tools weren't necessarily useful in the way that they are now, right? So when I think about the progression of this, I kind of think about late 2022, when things started to get better on the media side of things, on the LLM side of things, right? And of course now we're effectively at broadcast quality for music, for voice, for video, debatable. But it's gaming. We'll get into some of that stuff too. Gaming assets. It's crazy. Now, of course, once those tools went from being kind of like Will Smith eating spaghetti, kind of joke stuff, to be more serious, lawsuits became a thing, right? Because and we'll get into the data side of this about why those lawsuits exist, and also the repercussions of us as creators and what we need to be cognizant of if we're making content that leverages AI, because you can be legally exposed there beyond just not being able to copyright that stuff. And then the last thing, of course, would be that came after all this is then that the job market really started to pick up on these tools, and it has absolutely impacted the roles that are available for people coming out of school and the roles that a lot of us inhabit in the industry. So both on the executive side and on the creator side, as you all know, right? So we're going to talk a bit about that. So just to kind of set the table, that's what where we want to go here, right? So, and not to belabor this, but we have never in probably human history we haven't experienced the amount of change in the past over the past 3 years. It's not happened at any other time, right? And I'm even guesstimating roughly 10 years of media compressed in just a few years. It's probably more than that. It's like the market is reeling from this. The job market is reeling from this. Everyone is trying to figure out how to navigate this because, as you know, every day, every week, something substantial has changed, and it becomes a full-time job. And it is my full-time job on the tech side to keep up with all this stuff, right? And to figure out. Yeah. Again, Todd, please.
The nearest analog that I have, in my professional career or whatever, is the rise of digitization. I do a presentation where I show this is how I learned how to edit, and it's a piece of aluminum with some lines cut through it with a piece of audio tape and my hand with a razor blade, right? That's where I started, and my career followed digitization, and so that's now, wow, 40 years. For digitization to hit hard mainstream, like it's in our lives, you can't even think about it anymore. You can say it took let's call it, I'm just going to be generous, I'll just say 15, but maybe closer to 20. So by about 2008, let's say the debut of the iPhone, right? Digitization is in our lives. It's there. Took 15 or 20 years to get there, right?
And
AI took 3.5 years to get where it is right now.
Yeah,
and
it'll be interesting, right? Because there's the kind of the tech side of things, and then there's the adoption side of things, right? AI still is in this Wild West phase of adoption and people's acceptance of it. And I'll just say this right off the bat: in 3, 5, however many years, we won't even be talking about AI and when it comes to creator tools anymore. It'll just be software that runs inside of other software. It will just be the way things work. I'm a music guy, right? So every DAW, digital audio workstation that exists will have AI baked into it in multiple forms, including generative AI. And I'm not speculating on that. I'm involved in those licensing deals with some of these companies. So it won't be controversial. It'll just be a way a generation came up creating, right? Regardless of what you think about it, that is kind of where we're headed. And last thing, and I'll jump to the next slide. I actually had dinner last night with a Microsoft executive who's out here in Las Vegas, and he postulates that the next 12 months we will see more advancement in technology than we have in the entirety of human history. Now, where that might be hyperbolic, but the way things are exponentially speeding up is bananas, nano bananas.
Yeah.
And all right, and the last thing to set this up. So we're going to go through this in 3 parts. One is going to be the training data in the legal stack, which I kind of mentioned before, the job market's reaction, and a little bit of a discussion about the actual tools themselves. And Todd and I talked about this before we did this presentation. We could have just made this all about AI tools across various media verticals, but then we're just kind of rattling stuff off at you, and you can Google that stuff. You can ask ChatGPT about what are the best vocal models, for example. You don't necessarily need us to do that. We'll highlight some of them, but it's more about the trends than it is about the specific tools. Okay, so and Todd, chime in at any point. The first thing
all the tools, right?
Yeah, right.
I think one of the things I'd like to impart, I'd like you folks to walk away from this with, is kind of a high level understanding of like not so much what is this technology, because that's a whole other big conversation, but to separate, if you could, the technology, right, from the products, right? The AI technology is like groundbreaking, most amazing thing ever. Like we have never seen it, and to what that Microsoft executive saying, in a year will it change everything that we've in human mankind? I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's bigger than any of us generally in our lifetimes are going to see. This is like the biggest thing.
Yep.
The products, on the other hand, need to bear in mind, none of the products, they're called frontier models for a reason, is they're not fully baked, right? Mm-hmm. They're like those chocolate chip cookies you take out of the oven too soon and you pick it up and they just like droop off. They're not fully baked. So we're working with this amazing technology, not finished. And then the other side of it is, and I haven't had this conversation with Daniel, so I don't know how he feels about it. We'll see. But the other side of it is, and it's all in private hands.
Yeah.
There's no public frontier models in the world. It is all in private hands. Universities have not seen these models. We can only do post-release analysis, right?
Yep.
We don't control any of this. We have a lot of people. There's a concept called circular financing in the AI world, which I'm pretty sure in any other industry would be grounds for some sort of legal proceedings. I don't know. It's the whole financing of the entire business is basically a snake eating itself, eating its tail. So tons of products. This is just like a little tiny sampling here, right? There's a site, if you want for fun, go to a site called there'sanaIforthat.com. They currently track, last time I saw, over 41,000 different AI products on the market right now. Like, what? Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's bananas. And it is Professor O'Neill said, like, we don't have access to look inside training data and model architecture and all this type of stuff. And what you find is, of those 41,000 products, many of them are just using the same things, right? They're just using the same open source models or what have you. And I'll get into this. There's data fraud is a huge issue right now that I'm running into, where they're repackaging things that are not ethical models as ethical models and reselling them to people and indemnifying. It's a mess right now because this has all happened so quickly. And it's a gold rush, and everyone's kind of putting morals to the side and sprinting as fast as they can. Not everyone, but lots of people. And that's kind of relates to this slide here, right? You've all heard about issues with, what is an ethical model, right? And there's a lot of things that encompass that. We'll focus on the training data part of that, right? Because most of these models were trained on scraped data, right? They were just whatever's on the internet is ours, and we're going to use that to train our model to do whatever, whether it's a text-based LLM thing, image generator, video, audio, or speech type of thing. And obviously there's other forms of this as well. And I have a bit of a chart here for that, and I won't go through everything necessarily, but there are examples of companies who have sort of moved into the ethical training space. It's complicated. I was on a panel 4 weeks ago with the chief music officer of Suno. Okay, if everyone knows, assuming everyone knows what Suno is. And his name is Paul Sinclair, and he used to be at Warner Music Group. He moved over to Suno around the time that Warner did their licensing deal with Suno. They're the only major label to be working with Suno at present. And they're a company that just scraped everything, right? They took all of your music, all of my music, and they used it to train their model. But then they said, we can't tell you what we trained on. So they wouldn't admit to it, but you could generate one of your songs using the tool. So it was like obvious what they were doing. And this is a very Silicon Valley thing, right? They basically, it's the ask for forgiveness, not permission thing, right? And the goal of these type of companies is to effectively blitz scale as fast as they can to get to a point where they're making a substantial amount of revenue that gives them the leverage to then do deals to try to get out from under as many of the lawsuits as they can, and then be able to navigate the ones that remain, right? And that's effectively what you've seen on the music side of things, and that there's analogs to that across other media verticals. And then you have companies, just to wrap this up, that have seen that success and said, okay, we're going to try to do this the right way now because there's an established market. Licensing, as much as I want to be angry about companies that scrape data, which is all of them basically, if they had tried to license that data, it would have been impossible, right? So in that case, the technology likely would have been more in the research phase and less in the commercial product phase. And maybe that's the way it should have gone. But that's the reason that they did it, is there wasn't a financial model for them to get this stuff out to market, and they went about it the way that Silicon Valley goes about it. You have companies like 11 Labs, if you're all familiar with them, multi-billion-dollar company that does vocal models, right? But they also recently released a music model, and they decided we're not going to scrape anything for this, right? We're a legitimate business, and they went and licensed all the music that makes up the data set for the 11 Labs music model. Lander's data set that our users opt into and get paid for is a component of that. The challenge, and then I'll shut up and please, Todd, chime in.
Yeah.
Is that when you are licensing data, you are also limiting the abilities of your model versus people who are more unscrupulous with the way that they aggregate data, right? So in other words, the 11 Labs model for music is great. It is not as good as Suno. A, because Suno's been on the market longer and the tech's a little more advanced, but B, they just take the Beach Boys and Led Zeppelin and Eminem and anything that they want, whereas 11 Labs is isolated, trying to do things the right way. The general public may or may not care, which is why you see companies like Suno have so many users versus a company like 11 Labs on the music side.
Yeah, I mean, I've done lots of different presentations around this, and if you were ever to look at the growth curve, it's not even a curve actually, it's just a straight up for
Right.
some of this. Yeah, if you were to look at the growth rate of these tools, here's the comparison. This is going back to November 2022 when OpenAI released ChatGPT, which is now pretty much like the Kleenex of generative AI, right? Yeah, I'm going to ChatGPT it, right? Whatever. And so within a month, ChatGPT had 100 million users, right? So let this set, like within 30 days, had 100 million users. It took Netflix, I believe I'm hitting this right. It took Netflix, which is like in our lives, right? I think it was 10 years to get 100 million users. And a lot of that's because, okay, fine, Netflix wasn't online. We all got the red envelopes and all that stuff, right? Yeah, the tools out there, it was so stupidly dumb easy to use, right? Who cannot type like 5 words or a word or whatever, a noun and a verb combination into one little line, right? That's the innovation. That little thing, that is like the putting a human interface again on top of what used to be just a huge, really a mathematical interface. That's the innovation, which is awesome. Think about it. We have not really innovated since then. for chat tools, there's been no innovation. We're still entering stuff into boxes. And there are other tools you've probably heard of, like agentic AI, where you basically I hate to use the word program, but you basically have a generative plus other kinds of AI tool go out and do your bidding. You give it permission to use your materials, sometimes your logins, whatever, to go off and do stuff. Yeah, it's awesome. But the growth, like I said, not a growth curve. It's just straight up. The vertical growth of this is crazy. Again, for something that is an experiment, it is not finished, and that is the scary part. That is now being integrated into so many different parts of our lives right now. And I don't know. Yeah, it's scary. It's going to cure cancer, which is awesome. Awesome. Anything that can cure cancer, by extension, can also create new cancers. That's worrisome. And it's all these things. So yeah.
Yeah. And again, we're going to go off on multiple tangents on this.
Yeah.
Chat.
Sorry.
No, this is a good thing, right? Because this is, it's people, as many of you know, there's a generation of people using ChatGPT as their therapist effectively, right? And the guardrails on what these LLMs are providing as advice are being built as we go, as mistakes happen, right? You've seen lawsuits about this already. So these are research projects that basically are public and pitched as finished products for the most part. Buyer beware on that side of things, as we'll dive into here. And this is one of those things. I mean, one of the lenses I want to look at this through is assuming you all are, you're all from the Department of Mass Comm, media professionals in some regard, whether that's journalism, video, gaming, music, whatever, right? Or aspire to be. You have to be careful about using these tools as a professional, right? And not just like the quality of the output, right? Because the nice thing, I guess, right now is that it's so hit or miss with what a lot of these things put out, is that your taste, and we'll get to this later, your ability to make decisions on a final product really, really matter, right? You can't just ship things that come out of AI, but you really have to be aware of your legal exposure for doing so, okay? So as Todd said, we don't have access to what these people trained on generally. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't know. The outputs are pretty good. And the companies that we are, whether it's a OpenAI or whomever, are giving us these things and saying, you can go to market with this. Well, the reality is, and I've got just some examples here across kind of cinema, gaming, and music. I deal a lot with AI contracts. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example here. Okay, where I'm working with a company that has a generative music model for like samples and stuff that I would really like to use. And they tell me they can't tell me what they trained on, but I need to just assume that it's ethical. And not only do I need to assume that, they will put in a contract that they indemnify me from any legal exposure. So in other words, if I put out a song and it sounds like an artist's song that exists in the market, and that artist sues me, I'm protected against that, right? Because this company has contractually indemnified me against that. These are the kind of things when you look at contracts, even of clients of yours, you need to be aware of. Like, are you protected if something comes out that violates somebody's copyright? And in this case, it was useless, because the way indemnification works is if the party that's indemnifying you doesn't have any money, then you're not really protected, right? So if I get sued and they don't have any money to back up that suit and absolve me financially, then I'm ultimately on the hook for it. So there's, not to get into the legal side of this, but man, it's multi-layered. And what's scary is a lot of the detection systems for AI across video and music and what have you are, it's a cops and robbers thing, right? They're chasing the technology, they're updating to try to detect the newest model that comes out. Some of these things might not be litigated for years. So something that you do now may not come back and bite you in the ass for 2 or 3 or 4 years. And that's a very real risk, right? So just something to keep in mind as you use these tools. You know, we skip through the terms of service of things and we just kind of click through. You cannot do that with AI tools. You need to know what you have the rights to do with the output, what they're doing with the input that you provided. Like if you upload just to go on another tangent, if you upload a video of yours or a novel that you've been working on, is that then, do you even own that anymore? Is that now part of the training data that other people are leveraging? And on a lot of these tools, it's either nebulous and or you have to have an enterprise tier plan. So you have to pay more not to be included and to basically give up your art into a training set that's going to be used for other people. Anyways.
Yeah.
Wild. So we're going to zip through a couple more things and then we'll kind of do a more general chat.
Yeah, please start submitting your questions.
Yes,
and don't wait, don't wait, because we may be touching on stuff you want to know about, but we don't know what you don't know or what you want to know. So let us know.
Yeah, we're coming in, and I meant to say this, we're coming in a bit blind, right? Because I don't know the breadth of experience of the people that are watching this right now, kind of what things you're interested in knowing, what things you already know. So again, please help direct us on that side of things. So I'm not just we're not screaming into the void here. So kind of the other topic that I just want to address quickly is the impact, what we know about the impact on the job market on the media side of things from this, right? And we do a lot of hiring at my company, multiple companies that I work with, and I'm involved with some ones much bigger than ours and get to see kind of how this has been affecting. And it's probably what you would expect. What's interesting is we haven't seen a big headcount fall off. We haven't seen mass layoffs at this point over directly for AI. We're starting to see that. The Amazons, you're starting to see things that are shifting a little bit. But what we're definitely seeing is a shifting in roles, right? And this really is a concern to me when it comes to students, which and even in former students, which we'll get to. But so like when we see, entry-level positions, right? Copywriter, junior design, voiceover, that kind of stuff, editing, all that. So those are largely going away. And if you look at the job market, right, so many things are looking for AI assisted blank, right? They want you to know AI tools where you used to be asked, do you know how to use Pro Tools? Do you know how to use Premiere? Do you know how to use, now it's do you know how to use XYZ of whatever the kind of, the current LLM is or what have you, right? Where I have not seen so the roles are shifting, right? Not necessarily going away. The higher level roles, editorial, meaning that you are the one making decision about something is good or not. You're directing the AI. You have the domain expertise, right? Creative direction. Those roles are fairly intact at this point, right? They're just kind of super powered because of all the tools that you have underneath you. But those roles, if you're not adapting in those roles, if you are not leveraging, and I want to be clear about this, if you're in a company and you're not leveraging AI tools, you are probably getting let go. And I say that across, even beyond just media. The way that this is wildly screwed up the developers is nuts. Like many companies now know this. I don't know if you know this or not. There is a quota on the amount, like every week they are tracked on how much AI they used in their work. And if they consistently fail to have used AI at the level the company expects, they are absolutely grounds to be terminated, right? Because they're not being as efficient as they could, because the idea is they want them to do the work of 3 people. And this is where we'll start to see more layoffs coming in the future as these tools are just really getting implemented inside larger institutions. And there's security issues and all sorts of other stuff that go with that. But yeah, wow.
That's a story that came out of Meta a few weeks ago, that Meta was heavily tracking their people because Meta's all in on AI. We're all going to do AI, just like Meta was. We're all in on the metaverse. We're all in on the metaverse, and oh, we're all in on glasses. We're all in. I mean, Okay, what else? What else?
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing to think of too, and I don't know, again, like alumni wise, where you're at, in your career arc, if you will. But yeah, you've probably heard, oh yeah, um, we don't have to hire entry level people anymore because AI can do those jobs, and it's really easy. And from a business management standpoint, that's problematic because that means you're not priming the pump. And that means in 3 years, you will have no mid levels because those mid levels expect to get promoted to senior levels and you have no entry levels to fill the mid level slots. So, like for for the business side of the business, yeah, that's a problem. And that is not a problem you should be looking at. We have a lot of accountants figuring out like, oh yeah, we can save a lot of money here. But yeah, fine, you can, but in 5 years, where will you be? You're expecting AI to do everything, I guess, because someone has told you that AI is going to be able to do everything, but you actually haven't actually seen the technology that they tell you is going to be able to do everything. I'm not sure that's a great way to run a business. So there's things that we really have to really look at. And yeah, thanks, Daniel. The
Well,
apprenticeship pipeline.
Todd,
Yeah,
we have a comment here.
Please.
It says, will we see companies replace middle management employees to create AI related job titles and hire them right out of college at a higher rate than the middle management job that was just laid off or frozen with no raise? I saw that happen during the internet craze where new hires were making 10,000 plus more than those of us who were there 5 to 10 years, even though we knew the technology.
wow. Hang on. I'm just let me read through that again.
Of course.
Yep. Um, will companies hire entry level people at a higher rate than they used to hire? I don't. That that goes counter to why they're laying people off. I don't see them spending more money. I mean, just in my head, I don't see that really happening. Hope I think probably upper management figured out what they did during the internet world was like, oh, that was a mistake. We shouldn't have done it that way. Um, yeah, gosh, I don't know. I'm sorry. Don't have a great big answer here. Let me read
Yeah.
through the question again. Daniel, I'm going to let you cover me for
I mean,
a
I'm not,
minute.
I don't know if I have a better answer than you, but companies are willing to spend more money if, right, they can demonstrate that that person can effectively do the work of more than one person, right? And that's I'll give you another example of this, right? It's not necessarily a middle management example. Roles are starting to bleed together in ways they didn't. In the development cycle, we develop plugins and software for creation and blah, blah, blah. You used to have very delineated roles and processes about how you went from kind of an idea through product management, through product design, how that was handed off to developers, right? Now, those roles are blending together. Product managers are shipping prototypes of software themselves using, pick it, whether it's Claude Code or Lovable or whatever. And again, security issues on a lot of this stuff too that you have to be really careful about that companies aren't thinking about when they're doing this stuff because speed, save money, Wild West. So there's dangers here too. But yeah, you're seeing. So now a PM, a friend of mine's companies, they just laid off all the product designers in the company because the product manager now is the product designer too, right? So in that case, if you're coming in as a new hire and you have the ability to be a product manager and a product designer because you're leveraging AI tools, you will get potentially a higher salary for that. But the company's still saving money at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, yeah. Two quick little bits here. So I'm on uh, almost every AI committee that there is to be on here at MTSU, and so we're on one particular committee I've been on for about 3 years. We've just been trying to be sort of keeping our finger on the pulse of what's going on here on the campus, and I have colleagues in computer science who are being told by their industry colleagues. Um, that it's odd because they're having trouble teaching students in like Comp Sci 1 because an AI tool can actually do all of the coding work that a Comp Sci 1 student can do. I mean, And you don't have to know computer science to do it. It will do the work, right? And so they're being told by their, by their industry colleagues, hey, you need to, they need to come in with AI skills, blah, blah, blah. And, the question these comp sci faculty have are, so we need to prepare students for mid-level jobs?
Yep.
Like not entry level? How does that work? And then just one quick thing. I just read a piece, I don't know where, I subscribe to way too many newsletters and podcasts and everything else. Person inherited a code base, and I'm sorry talking about computer science in a creative world, but that's our world.
Right.
He inherited a code base from something, a lot of it which had been vibe coded, which basically means you're using AI to run the code. And now the person who was maintaining it left. He had to take it over. He opens up the code and he's like, what is this?
Yeah.
I mean, it all worked. It was production code. It was running. Like, so for you, for what is production code? Go to like your doctor's health portal. That's production code running. You don't even think about like what is actually happening, right? It just runs, right? So this guy's looking at this and he goes, it's running in production right now, but it's so scattered and so bits and pieces and has duplicate code chunks, which is like the wrong thing to do. He doesn't know how he's not sure what he's gonna have to do to fix it, to get it to where it needs to be, right? That's a concern, and that's just going to ripple through all of our stuff. There's a chunk of code out there that runs pretty much every financial institution in the world. It's code that was invented in the 1950s. It's called COBOL. COBOL. If some of you are older, you may have taken a computer course. You may have had to learn COBOL. Those people who knew that have all retired. Some of them, many of them, have died. There are no COBOL programmers. We don't teach it anywhere. They're thinking AI could be like, the rescuer here. That would be awesome. That would be a great use of this technology. An amazing use of this technology.
Yeah.
Well, vibe coding up some new app like, oh yeah, let me make this thing. Like, yeah, no, this is not such a great idea. So
yeah, it's fascinating, right? Where that you just enunciated a great use of AI tech, but more money is being spent to generate meme videos with AI than being spent on a use case that solves a practical problem, right? Because that's one of the big complaints about this industry, right? Is that people are chasing problems that aren't problems, and trying to innovate new markets and all of that, but it's really it's turned the media market on its head. And kind of what this slide relates to, and this is what Todd was saying, the floor is rising, right? So that where do you get in when AI can do what were the base level jobs pretty much in any company? You have to be using the AI and somehow have the knowledge to do what was a higher level role than you might be qualified for. And the things that, consistently the things that we see that still really matter as AI is going to continue to improve. It's the worst today as it ever will be, right? Though we don't really know what the ceiling is on how good it will be. And that's an interesting discussion in and of itself. We just assume that, AI, it's going to keep getting better and better, just like we've seen over the past 3 years. That's not necessarily true, right? When you get into that last few percentage points of improvement, it gets to be much harder, much more expensive, much more time intensive, and we'll see. But taste and judgment, right? So that is still the number one. And I deal with this all the time in music. Musicians and producers are freaked out because anybody can prompt a song that sounds better than most music that students at MTSU can make, as an example, or professionals can make. But just because you can spit out a bunch of music doesn't mean you have the taste to go in and sculpt it to be the best it could be. Judge what is a hit versus what isn't a hit. And of course, there's all sorts of other stuff that goes into that beyond just the generation of music. But your ability to direct AI, as we said, AI puts out a bunch of crap. I say, I've said this for almost 10 years now, we're moving into a place where curation kind of is creation on the media side of things, where it's not necessarily your ability to draw or your ability to play guitar and record your guitar that matter. It's your ability to impart your taste by curating and assembling things that you like at a very higher producer level, right? And the reality is everyone now has that capacity because the technical proficiency, the bar is extremely low now because of all of these tools. There's just a few other things. Source verification. This is a big one. This is like the boring thing, but that really, really matters. Like the process of confirming the credibility, the accuracy, and the origin of information that AI puts out, right? I love Claude, all right? I use Claude Cowork, I've used Claude Code, Claude Design. It puts out stuff that if you didn't know that it's wrong, you wouldn't know that it's wrong. And it does it constantly, right? It hallucinates, and ChatGPT does this as well. Perplexity does this as well. These models are all good at different things, but they all screw up. And you can't ship something like that, right? So domain expertise is still incredibly important, right? Understanding the fine tuning of things is not, you can't just get from a tutorial on YouTube, and the ability to ship those things to market as products that people will use that work and don't have and also don't have code that's all a jumbled mess that somebody else can't come in and actually fix. That's not a professional product at the end of the day.
Yeah, education doesn't stop, right, when you walk across the stage at commencement, right? Education and learning has to be constant. And getting back to things like domain expertise, right? Yeah, can you get rid of like the entry level people? Sure, you can. Fine. Yes, the middle level, they're going to get promoted up to seniors. So now you have nobody to fill in the middle level because you have had nobody go through and develop and accumulate, I'm going to call it like professional life experience, right? In the trenches, doing something, trying it, seeing what breaks. The joy of being as an instructor is I can tell my students, yeah, you should fail on some things. I don't mean like F fail. I mean like, yeah, it should go bad. And you should be able to, the point is you learn how to fix it and make it better, right? And that piece has to always be here because the analogy I usually give is like AI, unlike humans, doesn't like get up in the morning on the wrong side of the bed, right? So when I get up on the wrong side of the bed, maybe I don't have my coffee or whatever, I rolled over one too many times and I'm rushing. All of those little pieces go into all of the other things that happen during that day, all those little decisions that affect the output of something. So sometimes maybe something, crappy happens to me in the morning, and maybe in the afternoon that turns into a brilliant insight on my part. I don't know. Or it turns out to be one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my life. I don't know what it's going to be, but AI doesn't have that. That's not what hallucinations are, right? And only humans have that. That's, to me, that's like the human spirit, the human heart. It's the things that AI cannot duplicate any of that. And that's not what I teach my students, how to use AI. That's not where I go, right? I teach them how to use them in a business context. Here's a tool. Here's things this tool can do. Here's what you can do to make this go faster. Now, what can you do? If you make it go faster, it means you have more time to think about how to make it better, right? There are some things that, yeah, this is really useful. We should use it that way. But we just have to remember that, people get up on the wrong side of the bed sometimes or get on the right side of the bed sometimes. And it makes all the difference in that day.
Yeah.
I have another question here
Yeah.
you'd like it.
Yes,
which
please.
which majors out of the big three are best positioned to capitalize on AI in music and media? Are any of them being overlooked in their market valuation with their current position in AI? And how does their position change the market for music creators?
For
Okay,
music,
so when you
go
say
ahead.
majors out of the big three, do you mean like recording industry, media arts, journalism. If that's what you mean, it's all different. I mean, there's all opportunities across the board. You just have to figure out what works for you, or what could work in that world to leverage the tools. Are there a threat to every single one? No, that's I have an argument about that, argument against that. I don't think there is a threat. You hear the thing like, oh yeah, AI is not going to take your job. Somebody who knows AI will take your job. Like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, but the point is, if you don't know how to use tools to do the profession that you have chosen to enter, if you don't know how to use the tools that are at your disposal, you're at a disadvantage. And right now, one of the big tools at everybody's disposal are generative AI and other kinds of AI tools. And should you know how to use them? Yeah. Should you have the ability to choose whether you use them or not? Yes. I mean, out of the big three, I don't think anybody's really, positioned to capitalize. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, and one of the challenges there is also it depends, right? Are you a freelancer? Are you working for in some kind of corporate capacity? That also will dictate if you can even use these tools, right? Like we have very strict rules inside of Lander, as an example, about what people can and cannot use, not because we have a preference for one tool or the other, because again, largely due to legal exposure, largely due to the inability to copyright the output of things, and in certain cases that's a deal breaker. You can't use that. What we talked about earlier, in some cases, you don't even have the right when you generate something, depending upon the tier of subscription you have, to use it commercially in anything, right? So I haven't. I think AI has tangentially disrupted things like programming or development much more than it has the media arts at the professional level right now, right? You see a lot, you go on Instagram and all you see is AI generated music and AI videos, but that's a different thing, right? That's turning the average fan into a creator more than it is, impacting whatever, the higher tiers of the industry. But that's all happening now and coming, is a lot of this legal stuff we won't even be thinking about this in 5 years, right? It'll all have been tied up, all done. These tools will be something that you will be using at the highest tiers of the profession on a regular basis, and you won't really be thinking that much about it. And I think we also have to move, just again, on a tangent, move away from this idea that, when people think of AI, a lot of generative AI, they think of like you write a prompt, you get something. Or if I want to make 1 million songs and flood Spotify, I can do that. The reality is the thing that's going to improve about AI in the coming years, yes, the quality of the output, great, but the agency that the user has over what that output is where we're kind of backfilling right now. Like the amount of control that you have. And we've got a couple of products that blow my mind, the amount of control you have. If you want to generate a saxophone solo over a guitar part you just played, you can choose the everything about the dynamics of the playing. You can inform the type of instrument and all these different things, which you could not do even 12 months ago, right? So it's interesting. The quote that I love about AI that I think is very true for creatives, it came from Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, formerly Childish Gambino, who said it allows you to make mistakes faster. And I think that's one area that we're seeing creatives use AI a ton, just on the music side, because that's more my specialty. One of the biggest groups adopting AI is songwriters. In Nashville, by the way. Suno is huge in Nashville. It is massive in the K-pop world right now. And even more traditional artists that you wouldn't think would embrace AI, Teddy Swims, great example, is publicly talking about how beneficial AI is in his songwriting process, because it takes an idea that he came up with and he can listen to it in 50 genres, in different permutations, and go in different directions he might not normally have the time or budget to do. So there's areas where I think it's super helpful right now and on the professional side of the industry, but he's not shipping that generated content as his product, right? He's using it in the ideation phase. And that's what you're seeing with a lot of people at the professional level.
I have another question. If you would, with news about AI, particularly when it comes to data scraping and using it to generate more content, do you think that the law will ever catch up how to properly regulate that by redefining fair use laws, or will this forever be a case-by-case basis?
Can I jump in really quick?
Oh, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'm jumping in totally in over my head. If if we change, and by the way, there are no fair use laws, right? It's just some principles around the copyright law. But if we change our copyright laws to accommodate AI or AI content or whatever, personally, I think we're in a whole world of hurt. I I think this is a very bad idea. We need to designate like what we need to step back and think about what really is this. My personal thinking is, and you've heard people say this, especially around things like data centers. We're not going to get into that here because that's all like a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But the concept of a moratorium, my personal feeling is we need to slow down. I'm looking for what I call white label AI, which is I don't want to use. I mean, I love the Anthropic Claude tool. It's great. I use it. That's pretty much the only kind of tool I use. I love it. Really powerful, super powerful. But I want to Daniel's point, I want to have control. I want more control. I want to be able to pick and choose the model that I apply. Or give me some technology where I can combine multiple models that have different kinds of parameters around them to build, to have like a better source for the work that I'm doing. But don't tell me here's the model you got and it's super powerful and you really should use it. No, give me specialty stuff. I want to plug in really cool specialty stuff to come up with something that's really interesting that will work and solve my problems that I have right now. And the whole road down, the whole idea of going down the road of changing copyright to accommodate AI, I don't think personally, I just don't think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and this is again, we could talk for an hour just on
Yeah.
this topic about fair use, and
Yeah.
look at the Anthropic settlement, right, where they deemed it was fair use that Anthropic was training on all those books. It was how they accessed the books that was the problem. It wasn't the fact that they trained on them, right?
Yeah.
So
That settlement, by the way, is $1.7 billion. And they were training on 7 million different works,
Yeah.
of which they determined less than 300,000 were really an issue. And the individual authors, out of the 1.5 billion, each of the individual authors were going to get $3,000 per work.
Yeah. Whoop-de-doo. Anthropic's fine with that.
Yeah, they're like, okay, fine. Cost of doing business, I'm good.
Yeah.
We
That's
have a
the
correct.
thing.
Oh, sorry.
When you
We have a
scale, go ahead.
we have a curriculum question from recording industry, electronic music synthesis, desktop music courses. How would you see Suno, et cetera, incorporated into the curriculum? Do you foresee it supplanting or eliminating the need for this curriculum?
Not at all. It would. I don't think something like Suno will be in the curriculum in the short term, largely because Suno is still scraping data, and there's too many legal problems with, I think, the way that Suno is working now. As they are resolving all their blah 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 in the next year or so, whatever. But there's plenty of other tools that I think are important, both, and it doesn't all have to be generative. But like as an example, we have the ability now to take. Just a quick tangent. AI also has the potential to make music more musical, right? And it's something that we have to keep in mind when we get away from this idea of just prompting. An example is a lot of people in electronic music world, to your example, use loops to make music, right? Splice, Lander, Loop Cloud, whatever, right? And they assemble that. Maybe that's for demo. Oftentimes that's the final product. Well, those loops are static things, right? It's 4 bars, it's 8 bars, it's whatever, and it just does the same thing over and over again. Well, with AI at this moment, we can take that loop and we can outpaint it over the duration of a song so that it changes dynamically and it has nuance closer to what a human would do, right? As opposed to what we've been doing for so long, which is just cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste, right? And so in that sense, I support the teaching of those tools because it actually makes your compositions more interesting and more human, even though you're leveraging AI. But that's a great kind of combination of the technologies. Suno, probably not in the immediate future, but I'm not teaching the classes, so I can't speak to that, directly. All right, I know we don't have a ton more a lot more time here, so I don't want to ramble on for too long. But we were talking previously about specialty tools, or in kind of looking at it. I had a chart up earlier where you saw tools per kind of vertical in the industry. The horizontal tools, when we talk about horizontal AI tools, we're talking about things that kind of cross disciplines. That would be your Claude, your Notebook LMs, kind of some of the stuff here. And just because we're almost out of time, to wrap up on one thing about Claude Code and Cursor and Copilot, you see here, even the Lovables of the world, the impact that they're having, not just on the professional, but on the freelance side of the industry. Check this out. So in the past 10 years, and I'm gonna make a number up here. In the music production space, we have plugin companies, right? Plugin companies make software that kind of is an addendum to your DAW that you know gives you powers your DAW might not normally have, or a different sound or what have you, right? And I don't believe that there's been 50 or 60 new plugin companies that have launched in the past 10 years, right? I have documented 60 new companies that have launched in the past 6 months, right? So, and every day I found 10 more last night. Every night I'm going and finding more of them, because anybody can spin up a company in a product that they have no idea how to code anything, right? But there's even platforms now, and this is where the agency thing comes up, that are dedicated. If you don't have to use Claude Code, they're just dedicated to plugin development. If you can type in the kind of plugin you want and make some selection of the interface and make some UI to judgments, you can release a product to market tonight. If you want to. And does that mean, is it AI slop, right? Is it good? Debates. It depends upon how much effort you put into it. But a hammer can, you can build a house with a hammer and you can murder somebody with a hammer, right? A lot of these tools, it depends upon the user and the love and effort that they put into them to get the output. But the industry is changing. We have students who've launched businesses in the past month that are plugin companies using these tools. So there's also opportunity out there. But man, the market is saturated with this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I see we have a question there from JD. Yeah, and sorry, JD, you're talking to somebody who teaches at a university, so majors has a whole different meaning. Daniel knows what that means. Major labels out of the three bigs are best positioned to capitalize on AI in music and media. Are any of them being overlooked in their market valuation with their current position in AI? I don't know. Daniel, I don't know if you have any insight on that.
Yeah, as far as their market valuation, some are being more aggressive than others on AI. We talked about Warner earlier. Warner made a deal with Suno and Udio. Universal Music Group has been on the forefront of this as well. And obviously, the story that they're telling is we're going to leverage AI to allow fans, right? We're heading into the era of adaptive media, right? Where fans will be able to, media will be malleable. They can collaborate with their favorite artists. They can remix. You're going to see that on Spotify as an example, where you can do quite a number of things. And then the artist is going to get more money and more exposure and more fan engagement and blah, blah, blah. And of course, the record labels really are like, we're going to make the most of the money from this, right? It's not going to the artist. It's not going to the fan. They are doing what they do and are the middleman between those two things, and see this as a way to increase their market, their valuation. Have we seen the impact of that yet? To some degree, but there's more to come with that, because the proof will be in the pudding, and we haven't seen anything yet, right? None of this has actually come to market on the label side of things for the most part, outside of some experiments with UMG and YouTube. You haven't seen much. So I don't have a great answer for that, but it is an arms race, and those companies 100% are thinking that whoever can win in the space is going to come out obviously being worth more.
Yeah, and be fully aware that the money in the AI space right now, the money is going into the AI space. It's not coming out of the AI space. So, you're not going to see like OpenAI go, hey, yeah, I want to drop like a few $1 billion on you, Sony, or, WMG or whatever. No, that's not happening. They're looking for the money to come in. We just need to figure out what this is. I hope you all are thinking more about this, and take time to get yourself educated about this. It's a big deal. This is a big societal thing that we need to figure out, not just in our industries, but in our life spaces. Do you want your doctor using an AI tool to diagnose you if you know that tool is an experiment that could hallucinate and maybe use the wrong chemical symbol in a prescription? I don't know. Not sure I do.
Yeah, well, the hope is that before it gets deeper into those areas of the industry, it'll be a bit more refined than it is now. But again, like we said, it's the Wild West still.
Yeah.
And any other questions? I mean, we could talk about ad nauseum about all this stuff, but
Well, we've got several that say thank you so much for your time and expertise, excuse me. And Mitch Pryor says, happy retirement, Todd.
yeah.
Thanks.
Sounds like this was a very big success. People are demanding more. So maybe we can do this again sometime.
Hey, I'm always game. And I would say in closing, and this is just kind of reiterating what we've both said, even if you are somebody who is shaking their fist at the clouds about AI existing, right? And the environmental impact and the ethical impact and the impact on the creative arts, it doesn't change the fact that it's here, right? It doesn't mean you have to use it. There'll absolutely be areas in industry you can do fine in without leveraging AI, just to be clear. So we're not saying everyone has to use this. It does not hurt, and you should kind of keep up with what's going on just to be educated as somebody who has colleagues that will be using it and to know what you don't know, right? So I think it's the mistake here is not whether you use AI or not, it's whether you just shut your mind off to what's happening in the tech space because you don't like it. I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, totally agree. 100%.
Well,
thanks everybody. I really appreciate you showing up for this.
Todd, Daniel, thank you so much for your time. And everybody, thank you for joining us today. I will be emailing you a link to this webinar. So also, most of you are alums on here, so you can go to mtalumni.com, check out all of our discounts and events that we have for you. Otherwise, thanks again, guys, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.